Hello and welcome to another Rock and More flipped math production. Today's video is on what is area and how to find the area of a rectangle. We have two objectives today. The first one, you will be able to explain what area is used for and give an example of how to use area. Number two, you will be able to find the area of a rectangle using square units. Let's dive right into that first objective and talk about what area is. Well, I know before Mr. Moore gave an example of a backyard as being a good example of perimeter. And you can see this backyard has a fence around it, and that fence would represent the perimeter, the distance around the yard. Well, area is different, so I want to cross out that fence. We're not thinking about the distance around. What area is all of this flat surface of the yard. Think of it as the grass on the yard. Another way to think about it is the inside of a shape. So let's take a look at another example. I know a lot of you like to play hockey or just skate, and there are some backyard ice rinks out there in the Sunnyside community. And so just again, to think about area, we're thinking about the flat surface of the ice here. How much flat surface is there to skate on? Perimeter would be the distance around the rink, the outside edges here. Area, what we're talking about today, is the flat surface on the inside. So if we stick with that ice rink example, I want to just show you how area works a little bit differently from perimeter. If we've got a backyard skating rink and we measure how long it is, so we measure this long side right here, and we'll just pretend that we've measured it at 14, let's call it meters. So 14 meters long. Okay, well great. Now we know how much ice we need to put down. We'll know how much ice we have, right? Because I can just go here and I can just lay down 14 meters of ice. Bang, got 14 meters of ice right there. It's 14 meters long. Isn't that enough to skate on? You're saying, no, Mr. Rockenstein, that's like a line of ice that is 14 meters long. Okay, well then let's do something else, and we'll measure the other side, and so the other side here, let's say that was 8 meters, and we'll go ahead and do the other side. Oh, not in red. We'll do the other side here. There we go. We've got it. We measured it. We've got it 8 meters and 14 meters, 2 strips of ice. But that doesn't really look like a whole lot to skate on. So what you've got to think about when you're thinking about area is not just lengths, but you need to start thinking in square units. So square units are actual little squares. And since we're using meters, we're going to be using square meters to measure how much ice is on this rink. And a square meter is just one square like that. It's 1 meter long and 1 meter tall. Now across, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then down, we measured 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got 8 meters down and 14 meters across. So what we're trying to figure out, ooh, that's a bad M. There, is how many of these squares are there in the rink. And once we find out how many squares there are, then we'll know how much flat surface there is, and we'll know the area of the skating rink. We're going to measure it again with these meters, these square meters. So before we move on to figuring out how you find how many square meters there are, I want you to think about this question. So what else can we use area to measure? We've talked about skating rinks, the flat surface of a skating rink, the flat surface of a backyard. What else can you use it to measure? Pause the video, come up with a few ideas. Write them down and you can talk with your teacher about them the next day. All right, so let's move on to finding the area of a rectangle. I'm going to switch to a different example here, and we're going to switch to using my desk. We're going to find the flat surface on the top of my desk, and we're going to use actual squares. So I have one square unit right here. I'm not going to call it feet or centimeters or inches. I'm just going to call it one square unit. And I have this cloner here, so I can actually take squares and put them in here. We can figure out how many squares it takes to cover this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So it took us 28 square units. The other way to think about that, the other way to write that would be whatever unit we're going to use, and then we write squared up above it. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't usually walk around with little squares in my pocket that I can use to measure things. So we need to come up with a strategy that doesn't involve having actual squares and putting them out on a shape. So let me show you what else you can do. You can measure the side of a shape and then measure the other side, and then we can use those two measurements to find the area. So I'm just going to count how many squares are along this side here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 4, and let's just start calling them feet. 4 feet. And then down this side I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm actually counting this space right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that length is 7 feet. Now, you may have noticed, if I go back, we said that the area of this was 28 units squared. Well, you may have already noticed that if I multiply 7 and 4, I get 28. And that is the formula that you can use for finding area. You take the length, or excuse me, we'll call it the base, and you multiply it by the height. So if I go back up here, we'll call 4 feet, that's the base because that's what it's sitting on. And 7 feet, the height. And we just multiplied 4 and 7, base times height. I'm going to do one more example here. Here's another rectangle, and we're calling these square units centimeters squared. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So this side is 4 centimeters long, and this side is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This side is 5 centimeters long. So my equation says that I do base times height. So here my base is 4, my height is 5. So I multiply those together and I get 20. Now the critical part. 20 what? Llamas, zebras, kangaroos? No, my unit is centimeters, but I'm measuring these squares. I'm measuring how many squares they are in this flat surface, so I have to write squared. 20 centimeters squared is my answer. And we can confirm that by counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So we've got 20 centimeters squared. Now, I want you to find the area of this rectangle. I've given you the measurements because you can't really measure on your screen. So I want you to find the area of this rectangle. Pause the video and do that right now. All right, so I've got a base here, this side that's kind of facing down. You can kind of think of the base as what the shape is sitting on. That's 8. And my height is 3. So 8 times 3 is 24. 24 what? Centimeters. But I'm not measuring with just centimeters. I'm measuring with centimeter squares. So I need to write squared up there. So my area for this rectangle is 24 centimeters squared. That's all I've got for you. Remember, you can always rewind, go back and watch anything you need. Make sure you've met the 2 objectives, and then it's time for some practice. See you next time.